Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi tahirin. Wa salamu taslima. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. This is our lesson 10 of Ilmu Aklaaq, Ilmu Al-Aklaaq, and we've been discussing the Al-Quwwa, the faculties of, or the powers of the soul from an ethical point of view, from a moralist point of view. And today we are going to discuss Al-Quwwa, Al-Aqliya, Al-Quwwa Al-Aqliya. Ain, here an Aql, Aql, Sukun on Qaf, Aql, Aqlu. Aql is a moon letter. So when we said in the Arabic grammar, when you write al, if it is a moon letter, the lam is dropped. Or if it is a sun letter, if it is a sun letter, the lam is dropped, and shadda, doubling, is added to the sun letter. Let's say in this case sheen, so it'd be ash, asha. But when it's a moon letter, we said al, the lam is kept, such as when we see al-aqliya, aqliya. And aql is intellect. So soul, in essentialness of the soul, is an intellectual substance, an immaterial intellectual substance. But we're going to look at this from more ethics point of view, an akhlaqi point of view. So our topic here concerns al-Quwwa al-Aqliya, and we're going to discuss hikmat. Hikmat is the virtue of the Quwwa al-Aqliya, of the faculty of intellect. So this is the golden mean of that faculty, hikmat. And when we pronounce this at the end of a sentence or by itself, then we say hikmah, hikmah, and this turns into a H, hikmah. So knowledge and wisdom is the golden mean between the two extremes of simple ignorance, jahal basit, and slyness. What's jahal basit? Jahal basit is simple ignorance. Simple ignorance is when you don't know something and you know that you don't know. And this is, in logic we study there's two types of ignorance. There's jahal basit and jahal murakkab. And jahal murakkab is compound ignorance, and is when you don't know something but you think you know it. You believe you know it. So, knowledge and wisdom is a golden mean between the simple ignorance, the jahal basit, not knowing something, and knowing you don't know, and slyness. This virtue is one of the most beautiful virtues and corresponds to real human life and affects human life in the most beautiful manner. This is because to be a real human in the real sense of actualization of your existential potentiality is to be intellectual. Because human by rational definition is an intellectual being, is defined by its two essentials. Two essentials define human being: rational, animal. Animal is something that moves with intention or will, and rational, so animal has desires and moves and etc. It has will, and rationality is the specific difference. They call it differentia. It is the difference that sets it apart from animals, adds to it something more, and is rationality, intellectualism. And this in Arabic is called Al-Haywan. Al-Haywan Al-Natiq. Haywan Al-Natiq. Okay. So there has been very much emphasis on knowledge and wisdom in Islamic resources, so much where it produced such an enormous impact on the Islamic culture and civilization, as well as upon the rest of the world, including especially the Western world, called the Occident. And when we say Occident here, it is meaning East. And Orient Occident means West. Orient means East. So when you call it Orientalists, they're Western scholars who study the East, and Occidentalists are scholars who study the West. So Occident means the West. So the Islamic intellectual encouragement for knowledge affected the whole world, especially the Western world, called the Occident. As is viewed in the Latin translation movement at Toledo. Look into this, the Latin translation movement at Toledo in Islamic Spain, Al-Andalusia. However, the effect of the Islamic encouragement to seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave is not the subject of this section of our studies. We intend here to focus on wisdom as a virtue, which is a true intellectual light that shines from the human soul in all aspects of his or her life. This is a fact that we see some of these virtues we mentioned are directly affected by knowledge and wisdom. If you've taken notice to some of our cures that we mentioned, such as taqwa, tawakkul, in fact, any action, as we stated in the very beginning of our lessons, required prior knowledge. Even courage and chastity are affected by knowledge and intellect. Ibn Sina was a great philosopher, doctor, scientist. Ibn Sina, who's Latinized as the name Avicenna, believed that wisdom is a light that is placed into the hearts of people through the act of intellect. This occurs when people exert efforts to learn. While doing so, they open the doors of receptivity for the light of wisdom to enter their hearts. However, we do not intend to discuss wisdom from an epistemological aspect, but rather as a practical aspect, with relation to it as an established virtue which governs the human thoughts and actions in an intellectual manner, such as understanding the reality of an issue or issues and ideas by the use of proper premises and thoughts, and understanding of the falsity of a false idea by comparison of intellectual concepts. When we have the virtue of knowledge and intellect, we start to analyze the world in this respect. We start to see things in an intellectual perspective. Things have a different value and meaning than just what we've seen it as before. Because maybe before, people seen it without any value, without any purpose. So with intellectualism, things are viewed differently. The world view and the perspective towards the world is different, and towards yourself. And we act, because of this, we act in a manner which is in accordance with our intellect. If our intellect is not in its golden mean, we will make mistakes, and our worldview and life will be affected. Therefore, wisdom is almost looking to the answer to one of our questions, namely, what is the most important virtue? However, as we see, this is not the case, but rather there is something above it that governs that supreme virtue, and that is justice. So let us look at some Quran. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. He grants wisdom to whom He pleases, and whoever is granted wisdom, he indeed is given a great good, and none but men of understanding mind. Ulul Bab. And as for these examples, we sent forth for men, and none understand them but the learned. Illa al-aqiluna, except those who use aql. Bab, al-ulul bab and aql are used in a similar sense in Quran to refer to intellect. Imam Ali alayhi salam said, we quote these hadith, we have several of them here from Ghurr al-Hikmah. Ghurr al-Hikmah is an old compilation of the short sayings of Imam Ali alayhi salam. So Imam Ali alayhi salam said, wisdom is a garden for the intelligent, and a promenade for the noble. He also said, wisdom does not settle in the heart of a hypocrite, except that it departs from it. He also says, wisdom is a tree that grows in the heart and bears fruit on the tongue. He also says, fill your heart with wisdom, and don the attire with tranquility. Fill your heart with wisdom, he says, and don the attire of tranquility, for these two are the ornament of the virtuous. He's saying the ornament of the virtuous is tranquility, the clothes of tranquility, and your heart full of wisdom. He also says, the boundary of wisdom is turning away from the perishing abode. So the boundary of wisdom is turning away from the perishing abode and being infatuated with the eternal abode. And he also said the lost possession of the intelligent person is wisdom. So he is more entitled to it wherever it may be. So how shall we acquire wisdom? How to acquire practical wisdom? One can achieve wisdom, at least as a virtue, by opposing the two extremes of slyness and simple ignorance. Slyness is a vice which, when a person is ill with this malady, his or her intellect is drowned in meticulous examination and analysis that causes it to lose its balance. So it misuses intellect. This keeps a person far away from understanding the reality of things, and in fact takes the person far from it, and can even lead to a denial of reality. Such was perhaps the case with the famous sophist Perho, at least unless it was an act. Hence, education and knowledge are vital in this case as well. You know, Perho was a sophist, and sophists used to be like lawyers, akin to lawyers, and they were professional debaters, and they'd argue anything to prove their case. So Perho, his students would have to stop him from walking into wells and holes and such things, because he really believed that the world did not exist. But whether he really did or it was an act, we don't know. But you know, and then people like Socrates, they came and they argued for reality and truth, and they said they're a lover of wisdom. They're not the wise people. They're not these people who claim to be wise who are not. So that's what a philosopher is. And a sophist is somebody who falsely argued whatever they could to twist the argument so that way they're believed, even if that was false. Even if it was false, this is a wrong way. You don't do that. You have to have intellectually established propositions, intellectually established ideas. The cure for slyness is first to become aware of the dangers of being overly meticulous in examination and contemplate about it, and use the judgment and thinking of normal people such as ulama, the scholars. Ulama means scholars, as criteria. So use their thinking and judgment as criteria to help yourself, while keeping constant guard until one reaches the golden mean, until one establishes the virtue. Simple ignorance is a state that exists when an individual lacks knowledge and education. Such a person is aware that they lack knowledge. The cure for simple ignorance is one must examine the ill consequences of ignorance, and no man's distinction over the other animals is in his ability to have knowledge and learning. Because the human being is by definition rational essentially, Islam encourages this realization extensively with many a hadith and verses of the Holy Quran. So how to acquire practical wisdom? Some other things that we could talk about in this regard. Other vices that stem from this faculty of intellect when not in its golden mean are compound ignorance, which is when one does not know but thinks they know. Perplexity and doubt also can occur as a vice from this faculty, which makes a person unable to distinguish between right and wrong. And polytheism, which is joining partners to God, you know, and satanic temptations, waswas, and consciousness of these consciousness and trickery and slyness. Not a good consciousness. So, since this is our 11th class, we have to try to fit our curriculum into these classes, and we have an extra section here that we want to discuss. We want to discuss Iman. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. The dwellers of the desert say, we believe. Say, you do not believe, but say, we submit. And faith has not yet entered into your hearts. Iman fi qulubikum. It's Yamano fi qulubikum. I'm sorry, not Iman, it's Yamano fi qulubikum. Yamano is from the same root word of Amana. And Iman and Mu'min and Yaman are all from this root, from this word it's the word that we take for belief. You know, amana is like the trust, and mu'min is the believer, and mu'minat is the female believer. Iman is belief, and yamana is the mudariya of, so it's the present and future tense of believing. So Iman, these people, these Bedouins, they came and they said, we believe, we're mu'mins. But they weren't mu'mins. They were only Muslims. They only submitted. A mu'min is something more. Belief is something more. So what is this Iman? Iman is an internal quality, you know, a Aklaaq, kulki quality related to the soul. It is a belief that extends to actions. Therefore, it is a kind of testimony with actions, or in other words, correct theoretical and practical activities, because when one has right beliefs in their heart, qalb, and produces the correct motives built on knowledge, then one will willingly perform good actions. They will do it on their own want to do so. Iman is therefore the criteria to be a true believer. It is the condition to be a true believer. If you don't have Iman, you're not a true believer, which is the stage higher than being a Muslim in general, or accepting Islam by word. Perhaps this quality is due to wisdom and knowledge, which affects the practical actions. And to attain this, we must have a correct worldview and understanding of Allah Ta'ala, and the universe, and ourselves, in our situation of poverty and neediness for Allah. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam said, by means of Islam, the blood is safeguarded, trusts are returned, matrimony becomes lawful, but rewards are on account of Iman. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam said, like stars, faith is of 10 ranks that should be taken one by one. The owner of the 2 ranks of faith should not accuse the owner of 1 rank of having nothing of faith until he climbs the 10 ranks successfully. Hence, you should not throw him who is lower than you are down. So you should not throw him who is lower than you down, lest he who is higher than you will throw you down. You should also raise him who is lower than you so leniently, and you should avoid burdening him with heavy things that breaks his back. In fact, he who breaks a believer's back should set him. So some advice to increase Iman, faith. One should associate with faithful people and pious people and avoid sinful people. One should avoid looking and listening to the books of deviation. One should avoid the sayings of those who make people astray. One should contemplate over the creation and its reflection to the beautiful wisdom and of the intelligent designer and creator. One should also strive to practice obedience to God with the ability of taqwa, sabr, tawakkul, Allah, and wisdom. This is our lesson for today. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.